When you work with nodes, there are things that you repeat over and over again, connecting them, mixing them, or checking how different parts of your tree contribute to the final result. If you can even save seconds in each of these, then it will add up massively and make your overall work much more efficient. The Node Wrangler enables shortcuts that do exactly that, so here are the top 10 shortcuts to save time with the Node Wrangler. I'm Dude Blender, and let's jump right in. If you haven't done so, enable the Node Wrangler in Edit, Preferences, Add-ons, and search for Node, and you'll see it right here. If it's not checked, click on the box here. If you expand this and click on the Show Hotkey List button, you will be able to see all of the shortcuts. You can also go to the documentation of the add-on by clicking here. This will open a browser window in this page where you can see everything that the Node Wrangler can do. Also, whenever you're in a node environment, that's shaders, geometry nodes, or compositing, you can press N to open this side panel and then click on the Node Wrangler tab. Here you can also see most of the functions that you can do. You can also press Shift W to see this pop-up menu, and you'll see that most of the functions here are the same ones that you can see on the side panel. As I mentioned before, this works for all of the environments, although you'll have slightly different tools in each of them. Number 10. Lazy Connect. Alt right mouse button and drag. This allows you to connect two nodes without even clicking on them, so you don't have to be sniping on each socket. It will connect the nodes closest to the start and end points of your click and drag movement. Number 9. Precision Lazy Connect. Shift Alt, right mouse button and drag. This is like Lazy Connect, but it pops up a menu with the outputs, and then once you select the output, the inputs, so that you can easily select which sockets to connect. This one is particularly useful if you have large node trees and are very far away, and you want to connect two nodes without having to zoom in. Number 8. Lazy Mix. Shift Control, right mouse button and drag. This creates a mix node and connects both nodes to its inputs. This one's extremely useful because you do this very often, and it works in all three environments and with different data types. If I mix two shaders, it creates a mix shader node, but if I mix two RGBs, it creates a mix color node. In geometry nodes, if I mix two values, it creates a math node set to add, and if I connect two geometries, it creates a join geometry node. Number 7. Alpha Over. In the compositor with two nodes selected, Control Alt 0, and this creates an alpha over node with both inputs connected. This works both with the keyboard and the number pad 0 keys. And note that that is the same shortcut that we use in the 3D viewport, Control Alt 0, to set the camera to the view, although this one only works with the number pad. And right here we can also use the next shortcut, number 6. Swap Links. With the node selected, Alt S swaps the connections depending on what you have selected. If you select a node with several inputs of which one of them is occupied, it will cycle the connection between its inputs. If it has two incoming connections, it will swap between them. If you select two nodes that have outputs connected to different nodes, it will swap those connections. This one's especially useful when switching inputs from an alpha over or mix nodes. Number 5. Delete Unused Alt X. This deletes every node that is not contributing to the final result. So if I have something like this and press Alt X, it will delete every node since there is nothing connected to the actual output. But if I connect this one, then it will only delete these two nodes as they're not contributing anything to the final output. Number 4. Preview node output. Control Shift left mouse button in the shader and Shift Alt left mouse button in geometry nodes. This connects that node to the output. This is super useful when you want to check the behavior of specific parts in the node tree. Clicking again cycles between the outputs. Number 3. Reload images. Alt R reloads the images used in the tree. This is very useful if you're modifying an image in your editing software and then you want to see the change here immediately. Number 2. Reset nodes. With the node selected, backspace resets the node to its original values. Note one thing though, if you actually hover on one of the values and then press backspace, that will set that value to 0. But if you're using Blender 4.2 and above, then hovering on a field and pressing backspace will actually reset the field to its original value. Number 1. Add texture space setup. Control T or Shift Control T for principal texture. Whenever you have any shader selected, press Control T to create an image, mapping and texture coordinates nodes. If you perform the action on a texture node instead, it will only add the other two, the mapping and texture coordinate. This does save you a bit of time when creating procedural textures, while you'll almost always need these two nodes. Now for a principled texture, which is much more time consuming, select a principled BSDF shader and press Ctrl-Shift-T. This will open a file viewer where you can search for the files of your texture. This is a wood texture that I downloaded from Viz People for free, and if I go to list view, you'll see that it has albedo, gloss, normal, and reflect maps. If I select all of them by dragging or just pressing A and then click on the principled texture setup button, you'll see that it creates mapping coordinates, bump nodes, and image textures, and everything is connected to the corresponding socket. It looks at the names of the files to make the proper connections, and this works 95% of the time. If for some reason it doesn't work or it did not connect something, it's usually because there are more than one file for a specific property, for example having files of different resolutions, or if the name of the file is meaningless for Blender. Now right here there's an example of something that can happen. You'll see that there are 4 different files here, but there are only 3 connected. It's not using the reflect file because it's using the gloss instead. For Blender, these 2 are redundant and we only need to connect one of them. And that's it for today's video. I'm Dude Blender. Happy blending.